The morning sun of Manila was beginning to warm the bustling streets when Manny Pacquiao decided to make an unexpected visit to his old neighborhood in General Santos City. After years of traveling the world, winning titles and building an empire in boxing, the champion felt a deep need to reconnect with his roots. The memories of his impoverished childhood, when he sold cigarettes on street corners to help his family survive, still echoed in his mind as constant reminders of where it all began. The decision to return had not been planned. During a conversation with his wife Jinky the previous night, Manny had mentioned how he missed the simpler times when boxing was just a distant dream rather than a worldwide reality. She had suggested that he visit the places that marked his journey, especially those where special people had helped him during the most difficult moments. The suggestion resonated deeply in the boxer's heart, awakening a nostalgia he hadn't felt in years. Wearing casual clothes and a simple cap to avoid being easily recognized, Manny walked through the familiar streets, observing how everything had changed. The small establishments of his youth had given way to modern constructions, but the essence of the place remained the same. Children ran through the streets with the same energy he had decades ago, and street vendors shouted their products with the determination he knew so well. The boxer felt a mixture of joy and melancholy as he observed the neighborhood's evolution. On one hand, he was happy to see the progress and improvements that had come to the community over the years. On the other hand, part of him missed the simplicity of those times, when problems were smaller and joys were purer. Every corner told a different story from his childhood, from morning runs to the first improvised training sessions on dirt courts. The nostalgic walk naturally led him toward the old gym where he had taken his first steps in boxing. The place had become almost a sanctuary in his memory, not just for the physical training he had received there, but mainly for the life lessons that special people had taught him. Among these people, one figure stood out with crystal clarity in his thoughts. Coach Nestor Bautista, the man who had believed in him when no one else did, who had invested time and energy in a poor boy without asking for anything in return. Memories of Coach Nestor flooded Manny's mind as he approached the location where the old gym used to operate. Nestor had not been just a trainer, but a father figure who had filled an emotional void in the young boxer's life. When Manny was just a skinny and determined teenager, Nestor had seen something special in him, a potential that even the boy himself couldn't fully perceive. The coach had dedicated extra training hours, provided basic equipment when the family couldn't afford it, and most importantly, had offered words of encouragement during moments of greatest despair. Nestor Bautista had been a former boxer who never reached professional stardom, but who possessed impressive technical knowledge and a genuine passion for developing young talents. His training methodology was unique, combining rigorous discipline with deep emotional understanding. He understood that each fighter had a personal story that influenced their performance in the ring, and always sought to work not only on the physical, but also on the mental and emotional aspects of his students. For Manny, these lessons had been fundamental to overcoming not only opponents in boxing, but also life's challenges. The relationship between them had developed during the most formative years of Manny's career. Nestor not only taught the basic techniques of boxing, but also instilled values such as respect, humility, and perseverance. During morning training sessions, while other coaches focused only on the physical part, Nestor talked with Manny about the importance of never forgetting his origins, of always helping those who were in more difficult situations, and of using any future success as a tool to do good. These informal conversations during training breaks had shaped the character of the future world champion. Unfortunately, when professional opportunities began to emerge for Manny, the need to move to more advanced training centers created a gradual separation between mentor and student. Nestor had perfectly understood the situation and had encouraged Manny to move forward, even knowing that this would mean the end of their daily partnership. The coach had sacrificed himself for the well-being and growth of his student, demonstrating a genuine and selfless love that had deeply marked the young boxer's heart. The last conversation between them had been filled with gratitude on both sides and promises to keep in touch. However, as the years passed and Manny's career grew exponentially, contact had become sporadic and then had ceased completely. The life of an international celebrity, with constant travel, intensive training and media commitments, had created a practically insurmountable barrier between them. Manny always carried a silent guilt for having lost contact with the person who had been so instrumental in his development, not only as a boxer, but as a human being. This guilt had intensified over the years, especially during moments of greatest success, when he remembered how much he owed to Nestor. Deciding to take a different route back to the hotel, Manny chose to cross an industrial zone that had developed on the outskirts of the city. The area was filled with warehouses, storage facilities, and small factories that provided work for many local families. The movement was intense, with trucks loading and unloading merchandise, workers in simple uniforms moving hurriedly, and supervisors coordinating activities with walkie-talkies in their hands. The atmosphere of the place contrasted dramatically with the luxurious gyms and five-star hotels that Manny had become accustomed to in his international career. While walking and observing the working dynamics of the place, something caught his attention in one of the larger warehouses. A middle-aged man, wearing a faded blue uniform and carrying heavy boxes, moved with coordination and agility that seemed familiar. The upright posture, the way he distributed body weight when lifting objects, and especially the characteristic way of moving, awakened a distant memory in the boxer's mind. For a few seconds, Manny thought he was imagining things, but something deep in his heart insisted that this figure was not just any stranger. Approaching discreetly to the warehouse entrance, Manny was able to see the man's face more clearly when he turned to pick up a new load. The impact was instantaneous and devastating. It was Coach Nestor Bautista, visibly older, with graying hair and wrinkles that told the story of the years that had passed, but unmistakably the same man who had dedicated so much of himself to form the character and skills of the future world champion. Manny's heart accelerated, and a mixture of joy, surprise, and deep sadness took over his entire being. Nestor seemed focused on his work, moving with the same dedication and professionalism he had demonstrated in the gym decades ago. His hands, which had once held boxing pads and taught refined techniques, now carried boxes of industrial products. His eyes, which had once shone with pride seeing Manny achieve his first amateur victories, now focused on the simple but dignified task of ensuring sustenance through honest work. The transformation was both impressive and moving, showing how life had taken that man down completely different paths. Manny stood still for several minutes, watching his former mentor work, trying to process the overwhelming emotion that overcame him. Seeing Coach Nestor in that situation did not awaken pity, but rather a deep admiration for his dignity and strength of character. At the same time, a wave of gratitude and remorse invaded him, reminding him of how that man had been fundamental in his formation and how he had failed to maintain a meaningful connection over the years. The decision to approach was instantaneous, motivated by a genuine impulse to reconnect with someone who had been so important in his life. Taking a deep breath to control the emotion that threatened to overflow, Manny slowly walked toward the area where Nestor was working. The former coach was organizing a pile of boxes when he noticed someone approaching. Upon looking up and focusing on the visitor's face, an expression of total disbelief took over his features. For a few seconds, both remained silent, processing the surreal moment they were experiencing. Nestor blinked several times, as if trying to confirm whether this was real or just a product of his tired imagination after hours of intense physical work. The recognition was mutual and instantaneous, despite the years that had passed and the changes that time had brought to both of them. Nestor saw before him not just the world champion who had achieved international fame, but mainly the determined young man he had known decades ago, with the same expressive eyes and the same genuine smile that had captivated him since the first day of training. For Manny, seeing his former mentor was like finding a lost piece of his personal history, a direct connection to his origins and to the values that had shaped his personality over the years. The emotion of the moment was palpable, loaded with shared memories, unexpressed gratitude and a deep nostalgia for simpler times. Nestor tried to disguise his surprise and emotion, straightening up and cleaning his hands on his uniform in an unconscious attempt to present himself more dignifiedly before his former student. Manny, in turn, felt tears forming in his eyes, not from sadness, but from a joy mixed with deep regret for having let so much time pass without maintaining contact with such a special person. The environment around them continued with its normal routine. Other workers passed carrying equipment and merchandise, supervisors shouted instructions, and the typical industrial noise of a functioning warehouse served as background music for that unexpected encounter. However, for both men, it was as if time had stopped and only they existed in that space. The intensity of the moment created an emotional bubble that temporarily isolated them from the outside world, allowing them to reconnect with an intimacy that had been built years ago in the sweaty and simple environment of a boxing gym. Nestor was the first to break the silence, greeting Manny with the same simplicity and human warmth that had always characterized his personality. There was no trace of bitterness or resentment in his voice, just a genuine joy of reuniting with someone who had occupied a special place in his heart. His natural and unpretentious reaction demonstrated the authenticity of his character, proving that the years and life circumstances had not altered his fundamental essence of kindness and generosity. The conversation that followed was filled with updates about both their lives, interspersed with shared memories that brought smiles and moments of intense nostalgia. Nestor spoke about his journey after the closure of the old gym, explaining how economic changes in the region had affected the small business he maintained with some partners. The passion for boxing had remained, but opportunities to work in the field had become scarce, forcing him to seek alternatives to support his family. The work at the warehouse, although physically demanding, provided financial stability and allowed him to maintain dignity through honest work. Manny listened attentively to every word, absorbing information about how life had treated his former mentor during the years they had been separated. Nestor casually mentioned that he had followed Manny's international career through television and newspapers, feeling paternal pride with each victory achieved. He had never sought contact, explaining that he perfectly understood how complicated a world champion's life was and how full of commitments that made it difficult to maintain relationships from the past. His understanding and emotional maturity deeply impressed Manny, who felt even more guilty for not having made a greater effort to maintain the connection. During the conversation, Nestor demonstrated detailed knowledge about Manny's main fights, commenting on specific technical aspects that showed how he had continued studying and following the sport even after leaving his role as a professional trainer. His observations were insightful and demonstrated that his passion for boxing had remained alive, even when circumstances had taken him away from the rings. This silent and constant dedication deeply touched Manny's heart, who realized how much he had lost by not keeping Nestor close during his professional trajectory. The former coach also mentioned some of the other young people he had trained over the years, speaking fondly about small victories and progress that had meant a lot to him, even though they hadn't resulted in standout professional careers. His philosophy remained the same. Boxing was a tool to teach discipline, respect and determination, values that would serve young people in any area of life they chose to pursue. This consistency in his principles and purposes reaffirmed to Manny the exceptional quality of his former mentor's character. As the conversation developed, Manny began to mentally formulate a way to express his gratitude in a concrete and meaningful manner. He perceived that Nestor had accepted his current situation with dignity and peace, but this didn't diminish the boxer's desire to adequately recognize and honor the fundamental contribution that man had made to his life. The idea that was beginning to form in his mind was ambitious, but he knew he had the resources and determination necessary to transform it into reality. During a pause in the conversation, Manny felt the need to verbally express all the gratitude he had carried silently for so many years. He explained to Nestor how the lessons learned in the old gym had been fundamental not only for his success in boxing, but mainly for his formation as a person and as a leader in his community. The words came out loaded with genuine emotion, revealing how that reunion was being profoundly meaningful to him. Nestor listened attentively, clearly touched by the sincerity and intensity of the feelings expressed by his former student. Manny confessed that he had thought about Nestor countless times throughout his career, especially during the most challenging moments, when he needed extra strength to overcome adversities. He admitted that he carried a constant guilt for having lost contact, and for not having found a way to adequately repay all the emotional and professional investment he had received. This confession revealed a vulnerability that contrasted with the public image of the invincible champion, showing that even the greatest successes don't completely eliminate regrets and emotional responsibilities from the past. Nestor, in turn, demonstrated impressive wisdom and maturity in responding to Manny's concerns. He explained that the greatest gift a mentor can receive is to see his student achieve success and maintain the values that were taught during formation. For him, following Manny's trajectory through the media had been enough to feel professionally fulfilled. The absence of direct contact had never been interpreted as ingratitude, but rather as a natural consequence of life's evolution and the responsibilities that accompany international success. The conversation also revealed how both had maintained a silent, emotional connection over the years, even without direct communication. Nestor confessed that he had prayed for Manny's success and well-being before each important fight, feeling proud as if he were a distant but spiritually present father. Manny, in turn, revealed that he had mentioned Nestor in several international interviews, always crediting part of his success to the mentors he had during his initial formation. These mutual revelations created an emotional bridge that significantly diminished the temporal distance that had been established between them. The moment was becoming increasingly emotional, with both men recognizing the special importance they had had in each other's lives. For Manny, that reunion was transforming into a unique opportunity to correct an omission that had weighed on his conscience for years. He knew he had the power and resources to do something significant, something that could adequately express his gratitude and, at the same time, honor the dignity and sacrifices of his former mentor. The decision was made. Now it was a matter of finding the most appropriate and respectful way to implement it. In the days that followed the unexpected reunion, Manny couldn't stop thinking about Nestor and the situation in which he had found him. Although he deeply respected the dignity with which his former coach had embraced his current life, the boxer felt an urgent need to do something concrete to demonstrate his gratitude. During conversations with Jinky and his closest advisors, Manny began to develop an idea that he considered appropriate and meaningful. He wanted to create an opportunity that would honor Nestor's talent and experience, while respecting his autonomy and personal dignity. The central idea was to offer Nestor the opportunity to return to the boxing world in an official and structured way. Manny had observed during his visit to the warehouse that his former mentor maintained the same passion and technical knowledge that had characterized him decades ago. The plan involved inviting him to work in a new training center that Manny intended to establish in the Philippines, focused specifically on developing young talents from the region. Nestor would be the head trainer, with full autonomy to develop his methodology and select the athletes he considered most promising. To make the proposal even more attractive and respectful, Manny decided that the training center would be registered as an official partnership where Nestor would have participation in the results and important decisions. This would ensure that his former mentor wouldn't feel like a simple employee, but rather as a valued and respected partner. Additionally, the boxer planned to include comprehensive benefits that would cover not only Nestor, but also his family, guaranteeing financial security and growth opportunities for everyone involved. The most important aspect of the plan was its sustainability and social significance. The training center wouldn't just be a business, but also a tool to offer opportunities for young people from low-income families, exactly as Manny had been decades ago. Nestor would have the freedom to implement complementary social programs, including educational support and personal development for athletes in training. This holistic approach perfectly reflected the values both shared about the transformative role of sports in young people's lives. Manny knew he needed to present the proposal carefully and respectfully, ensuring that Nestor understood it was a genuine opportunity based on merit and real necessity, not just a disguised gesture of charity. The boxer was determined to demonstrate that his offer was motivated by recognition of his former mentor's professional and personal value, creating a situation where both could mutually contribute to something greater and more meaningful than either could achieve individually. 2 weeks after the unexpected reunion, Manny returned to the warehouse where he had found Nestor, this time with a carefully elaborated formal proposal. His former mentor was in the middle of his work shift when he was called for a private conversation that would completely change the course of his life. Manny presented the training center plan with contained enthusiasm, explaining every detail and ensuring that Nestor understood this was a legitimate professional opportunity based on competence and experience, not on sentimentalism or misdirected charity. Nestor's initial reaction was one of total surprise, followed by deep emotion that he tried to control, but which clearly showed in his eyes. He asked several technical questions about the project, demonstrating genuine interest in the possibilities being presented. His main concern was ensuring that he could contribute significantly to the enterprise's success. He didn't want to accept something just out of gratitude or nostalgia. Manny reassured him by explaining that he had thought of the project specifically because he knew his qualities as a trainer and mentor, and that he sincerely believed Nestor was the ideal person to lead this initiative. After a few days of reflection and discussions with his family, Nestor accepted the proposal with the same seriousness and dedication that had characterized his approach to work throughout his life. The training center was established in record time, with modern facilities, but maintaining the welcoming and familiar atmosphere that had characterized the old gym where it all began. Nestor assumed his responsibilities with renewed vigor, implementing innovative programs that combined rigorous physical training with personal and educational development. The first months of the center's operation exceeded all expectations. Young people from throughout the region arrived seeking opportunities, and Nestor demonstrated the same exceptional ability to identify and develop talents that he had shown decades ago with Manny. Several of the new athletes were already beginning to stand out in local competitions, validating the methodology's effectiveness and the project's long-term vision. The partnership between Manny and Nestor had become a model of how success can be used to honor the past and build a better future for the next generations. The training center's impact quickly transcended the boxing world, becoming a symbol of hope and social transformation for the entire community. Nestor had recovered not only his professional passion, but also his sense of purpose and personal fulfillment. For Manny, seeing his former mentor flourishing again in his natural element was more gratifying than any title or recognition he had achieved throughout his international career. The cycle had been completed perfectly. The mentor who had shaped the champion now received back the opportunity to continue shaping future champions, creating a lasting legacy that would benefit countless lives in the decades to come.
Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next cases.